What's up guys, my name is Ace, and finally we've got the Season 2 update for Black Ops 6. This one's been a really long time coming, and in today's video I wanted to go through the patch notes and cover everything that changed outside of weapon balancing for multiplayer. When it comes to weapon balancing, I like being able to go into a lot more detail, taking the time to test things, creating before and after graphics, and that's why it's going to take a little bit longer, and I plan on having that covered tomorrow. However, there were a lot of other changes outside of weapon balancing to cover today, and some really nice ones in here as well. And let's just dive right into this with progression and prestige. The first thing here is they did fix the issue where if you've reached Master Prestige, after every single game you would get the big congratulations screen popping up. That is no longer going to be happening after every match. It'll just happen when you actually hit Prestige Master. Then it looks like they fixed another cause of an issue that pops up from time to time where all other players in the match will just show as level 1 and it won't show what level they actually are. And the other important thing to point out here is they added a new feature where if you've reached the max level for your current Prestige, it will give you a reminder after every game that Prestige is available for you, just in case you maybe weren't paying attention and didn't realize that you'd hit that max level. Next, let's get into a few more details about challenge tracking, which is something they have mentioned a couple weeks back. They've been teasing this, we knew it was coming, but now it's actually here, and we have some more details on this. For those that missed this, now we're able to track up to 10 camo challenges and 10 calling card challenges. And if you don't go in and manually select challenges that you want to track, it will automatically track the challenges that you're closest to completion with. Also, something they didn't outline previously, but I really like, is if you're tracking a camo on a weapon, once you complete that, it will immediately start tracking the next camo challenge for that weapon. And that's great that they thought of that. I think that's really nice to have, because obviously if you're working through camos on a weapon, once you do complete that camo, you probably want to move on to the next one, especially if you're going through those headshot camo challenges. So that's awesome to see. I kind of wish we would have had this at launch, but better late than never. Next up, a quality of life change that I was really hoping they'd bring to the game here is the special camos you can now equip to a weapon after completing just 5 of your military or headshot camos for that gun. Whereas previously you had to finish all of your headshot camos, so all 100 headshots for most of the guns in the game, before you could use any of the special camos. And oftentimes, once people are already into their special camos, they're unlocking gold and diamond very shortly after that. So therefore, you often don't really see people using special camos because they have gold almost immediately after they gain access to using those special camos. After that, for the social section, they've added a favorites only filter to the friends list. They've now made it so player mic indicators will appear when viewing the party channel or game channel. They've added the ability to sort by progression and sort by rank. And finally, when it comes to Dark Ops calling cards, if somebody else has earned a Dark Ops calling card, before this update, it would just show as a classified calling card. You wouldn't actually see what it is. Now you'll actually be able to view that Dark Ops calling card and see what it is. After that, with the Dexterity perk, they've buffed this across the board to improve weapon motion reduction from 60% when jumping or sliding or diving to 70%. So a little bit of a buff there. Your gun's going to be slightly more stable while using Dexterity. Honestly, I don't think this is enough of a change to really make Dexterity all that worthwhile. I still think it should also be helping with Mantle personally, but of course, that's just my opinion on that. Then after that, the weapon raise animation that is played on respawn where you check your chamber. Previously, you could interrupt them by doing a weapon swap, but now all you have to do is just sprint forward, or you can just shoot your gun or aim down sight and it will immediately interrupt that animation, which is a good compromise instead of it just eliminating that entirely, which is honestly what I was asking for. I didn't even consider the option to just make it so that animation would be immediately interrupted and therefore just not getting in your way while still being there. And then finally, they've reduced bullet penetration on all surface types. So that means across the board, we should be dealing more damage when shooting through surfaces. After that, they buffed a bunch of the magazines in the game, so with Fast Mag 1, 2, and 3, and the Flip Mag, they improved reload times by 10% across the board outside of pistols. On pistols though, with Fast Mag 1 and 2, they've improved that by 5%. For LMGs that have a magazine capacity of 50 rounds or less, they've improved those reload times by 5%. The ASVAL default magazine reload time has improved by 10%. And they addressed the issue with Fast Mag 1 on the SWAT 5.56. It wasn't improving reload times as intended, now it should be. After that, they provided this list of specific magazines on specific guns where their reload add time, or the amount of time it takes for the ammo to appear in your gun while you're reloading, they weren't lining up with the intended timings, so they've made adjustments to those, and in all of these cases, they've actually slowed it down a little bit. Then, when using a melee weapon, it looks like they have removed the screen flash effect, that little stun effect that you get when getting shot from the front. And that's nice to see. That just seems so unnecessary. It didn't actually do anything as far as like stopping you from sprinting or anything. If you guys saw my melee breakdown, you'd know that. So it was a purely visual effect and a totally unnecessary visual effect in my eyes. After that, skipping over the specific weapon balancing updates, which again, I'll be covering in tomorrow's video, let's get into heads-up display. And with this, they address an issue where it would incorrectly display the field upgrade ready state after respawning. They address an issue where player names wouldn't be displayed beside the speaker icon when they were speaking. And then finally, as they've outlined in the past, they've now finally separated your HUD presets between zombies and multiplayer, so you can have different HUD settings for both. As for progression and XP, there's been a bug in Search and Destroy, I believe since launch, where you wouldn't actually get your match bonus if the entire enemy team quit the game and forfeited the match, or if you didn't deal any damage in the final round of Search and Destroy, which was kind of annoying. That has now been fixed with this update. Then talking about the Scorestreak destruction challenges, they've made them a lot easier. What they've done here is for camo and mastery challenges for the Sigma and the HE1 launchers, as well as the hot lead, air control, and fieldwork calling card challenges, you no longer need to deal the final blow to a streak. You just have to have dealt damage to that streak, and then it needs to be destroyed by somebody. And that sounds really nice for the people that are going through those launcher challenges. It is frustrating to put a rocket or two into a streak, only to have somebody else on your team finish it off with some bullets, and you don't get any credit for that whatsoever, even though you'd put a lot of work in destroying that. So I'm glad they made that change. After that, they made a very long list of adjustments to calling card challenges, generally making them easier to earn. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, that would be ridiculous, but there's a very long list here of these challenges, and many of them are going to be much more reasonable. They also mentioned they are aware of the Flowing Low Prestige 1 calling card challenge being bugged right now, and they mentioned while that's not fixed in this update, they are currently working on a fix for that one. In a similar vein, they made some adjustments to daily challenges, generally making them easier. Like instead of having to get 5 headshots with pistols for a daily challenge, now it's just 3. That's just one example. Most of them are going to be a lot easier. They also removed a bunch of daily challenges from the game, like eliminations with a full auto weapon, or a semi-auto weapon, or a burst weapon, or destroying enemy score streaks, for instance. So it seems like they're just constantly evaluating those and trying to get them in a good place. Next up, I was actually kind of concerned we didn't hear anything about this in the recent updates where they were sort of teasing what we were going to see throughout Season 2. With those blog posts, there was no mention of any adjustments coming to spawns. However, with the patch notes, they've confirmed that spawn logic has been adjusted to continue their efforts to reduce proximity to enemies when respawning. They've also added the ability to conduct live A/B testing with spawn changes to evaluate on a smaller scale, and if they find positive results, they can roll out those changes globally. And I'm glad to see there's at least a section on this, and some adjustments have been made. Obviously, at this point, I haven't really put any gameplay time into this, so time will tell as to whether or not these are good changes they've made to the spawn logic, or if it was enough of a change to it. My big hope is that in Domination, they've made spawns less sticky, and in Team Deathmatch, maybe make them a little bit more sticky. But time will tell on that one. Perhaps I'll have a video in the not too distant future evaluating the changes they've made here and sharing my opinions on them. Then when it comes to equipment, perks, field upgrades, and wildcards, there were some issues with lethal and tactical equipment if you were using Danger Close or Tactical Expert wildcards combined with the Scavenger perk. It was giving you the improper amount of inventory for that. They nerfed smoke grenades a little bit when combined with Tactical Expert. Instead of getting 2 extra smoke grenades, now you only get 1 with that to help reduce the smoke spam to a degree. Another thing is they finally addressed an issue where Gearhead just wasn't working. It wasn't decreasing the amount of time it takes to earn field upgrades. They made that buff to the Dexterity perk, which we've already covered. Then with the Ninja perk, they fixed the issue where in some game modes, you could lose functionality with Ninja in between respawns and round transitions. And they addressed an issue where the Ninja perk wasn't being applied to enemy players when they were spectating their teammates. So as a spectating player, you would hear Ninja users as if they didn't have Ninja, and you could potentially make that call out to your teammate. And then finally with this, headshots will no longer skip last stand when using the Morphine Injector field upgrade. After that, with score streaks, as they previously announced, they've addressed an issue where care packages could be captured by teammates at the same capture rate as the owner, and it's meant to take longer, so the owner has the first shot at picking that up if they're there. They also addressed an issue where the SAM turret would target enemy score streaks that were leaving the airspace, so it would effectively just be wasting its shots on those streaks because it would never hit them anyway. And they addressed an issue where the SAM turret targeting laser wouldn't be visible when tracking a target. Next, there's a little general section here, and with the detailed weapon stat improvements, not only did they finally fix the bug where once you go into an attachment category, you couldn't open up the detailed stats. You had to open the detailed stats before that, which was kind of annoying since at launch, it didn't work that way. That has now been fixed, which is nice to see. And on top of that, they totally reworked the detailed stats themselves and which ones you're able to see. And for a clear look at this, I wanted to show you pre-patch versus post-patch. These are with different guns, so the values themselves are irrelevant. I just wanted to show you which types of stats we've lost Those ones are highlighted in red on the left, so we no longer get to see minimap firing ping, which was identical for all of the guns unless you were using a suppressor, then it turned it to 0, so we really didn't need to see that value. Also, target flinch, that was eliminated, so we no longer get to see how much flinch we deal to enemy players. We also lost the empty reload quickness stat, as well as your weapon swap speed. Now, in saying that, what we gained here are several different hipfire spread values, so our jumping hipfire spread, sliding hipfire spread, and diving hipfire spread. We also gained the first shot recoil scale, the kick reset speed, the aiming idle sway value, not just the delay, but the value itself, and we got flinch resistance out of this. So that's how much flinch you experience when getting shot, depending on the gun in your hand. And then on top of that, for handling, we got our jumping aim down sight speed, our dive to fire speed, and our jumping sprint to fire speed. And overall, as somebody that works a lot with these detailed stats, as well as the attachments in the game, I am very happy to see these changes. I think the stats that we lost, generally, we didn't really need to see them anyway. Whereas the ones we gained are going to be very useful because in many of these cases, these are things that are directly impacted by attachments in the game, and yet we could never really see what was changing when you put that attachment on, and now we can see those values. And especially when it comes to those handling stats, like jumping aim down sight speed, dive to fire speed, and jumping sprint to fire speed, those are really difficult to measure with hand testing, so I'm glad we actually see the values now, so I'm not stuck giving you rough, close enough-ish values. After that, they address an issue in theater mode where sometimes projectiles that had been thrown, they couldn't be found in theater. They also finally address the issue where vehicles could visually disappear for some players during gameplay, and this is one of the few things that was leading to a lot of skill-based damage complaints. On their screen, people were shooting directly at enemy players, but not getting hits, and the reason they weren't getting hits is there was actually a vehicle between them and the enemy, but that vehicle wasn't visible at all. And they moved the training course entry point from the playlist section to the top right navigation panel. As for movement, we've got an interesting section here. The first thing I want to point out is something they've already covered. They've reduced collision with teammates, so you're not going to be bumping into teammates nearly as much after this update. But on top of this, they mentioned that they're continually monitoring on-new movement feedback, and they're currently testing a slight reduction to initial slide speed and duration to improve predictability of engagements. So this isn't something they've done with this update, but it's something they're looking into. They may be nerfing slide to a degree, which on one hand, I think probably makes sense. At the moment, sliding into a gunfight is by far your best option, and I'm almost always sliding all over the place while playing Black Ops 6 because of this. And I do think it is a bit overboard, but at the same time, after getting used to this so much in this game, if they nerf that, I wonder if that's just going to make people mad because it's going to feel like the game is slower and more clunky, and it's hard to take away movement options once you've already provided them to players. So just curious to see what they end up doing with this down the road, if anything. And this just leaves us with one final thing I wanted to cover in today's video, and this is a pretty big note for ranked play. With this update, if you're in ranked play, and this applies to Warzone or multiplayer, on consoles, you're now going to have multiple crossplay options. Obviously, you can still leave it on if you want, and that will mean you play with all other platforms. Additionally, you have the console-only crossplay option, which I love to see here, and this allows you to matchmake only with other consoles. So if you're on PlayStation, it will matchmake you with Xbox players and PlayStation players, but not PC players. And same thing if you're on Xbox. Or you can turn it off entirely and only play with the platform that you're currently playing on. And this is great to see. I didn't think they were actually going to go the console-only route with this. I thought they were just going to provide the option to turn it off. So it's nice to see that we have that. And honestly, I would love to see that for regular public matches as well. I would love to choose console-only crossplay so I could also play with Xbox players while still avoiding PC players, so I just never have to even worry about somebody having an actual aimbot or wall hack in the game. But of course, that's just my opinion on that. And overall, when it comes to this updates, I've got to say a lot of great changes in here. For many of these changes, it would have been nice to see them a long time ago. We've been waiting a very long time for a big update like this with a lot of these fixes and adjustments and improvements to the game. But it's finally here, and I'm glad to see that. Keep in mind, at this point of recording this video, I'm unaware of any new issues that popped up. Typically, that happens with a major update, so we'll just have to wait to see how that goes. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about Season 2 so far with Black Ops 6? Are you guys generally happy with the changes and improvements that were made, or maybe not so much? If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.